Hello and welcome to FiveJay Gaming. I'm FiveJay and today we are going to look at part 3 of my top Switch games of 2017. Parts 1 and 2 were AAA games and indie games. Part 3 are ports, games that have been out for a while or games that were on other systems before they came over to the Switch. So I felt there were so many games in 2017 that were great that it was hard to put ports on these other lists because it would bump off some other very deserving candidates. So I wanted to put my own category here of just games that were ports. So my number one pick for a port, and if you watch the channel, you probably already know this, it's Doom. I love Doom. Doom is an awesome shooter that simultaneously feels fresh and new and different in this world of 10 billion first-person shooters, and at the same time it also feels retro because it uses that health system which was abandoned like 10 years ago, 15 years ago. You know, you have health. You get hit, you lost your health. You need to find a health pack, right? That doesn't really happen anymore. You might get a health thing that will speed up your health recovery process or give you instantly your health back without having to sit there and recover. But usually today, you sit behind cover, you wait, your health comes back. Standard modern shooter practice. No, Doom says, let's go back to the old thing because it's new again. And it's true. What's old is new again, and it is wonderful. The satisfaction you get out of upgrading your weapons, there's such cool upgrades you get for these weapons. The satisfaction of beating down these demons in this ridiculous way. You actually get more health drops and ammunition if you rip apart these demons with your bare hands. It's so cool and so satisfying. That campaign is incredible. And when you're playing online, it feels like Quake. It feels a lot like Quake, which is awesome. And they're redoing Quake, so we'll just see how similar they end up being in the end. But essentially, Quake was built off of a Doom engine, you know, an enhanced Doom engine. So, you know, there is that ancestry there, so it's not a coincidence there is some similarity. So if you're a Doom fan, if you're a Quake fan, if you're a first-person shooter fan, you gotta check out Doom. You gotta play at least that campaign. I personally love the multiplayer. I love how customizable your character is. You keep unlocking new equipment, new armors, new weapons, new sub-weapons. It's really, really awesome. And some of the modes are really fun. I like this mode called Freeze Tag, where when you die, you are literally frozen in like a block of ice, and you just sit there and you don't come back until one of your teammates stands right next to you until a little bar fills and then you're unfrozen. And your goal is to make the entire other team frozen before your team is frozen. It's really fun. It really plays on the normal concept of just go for kills. No, it's kind of like protecting your goods once you have them, you know. So I really like Doom a lot, and I was really surprised to see that although it took a lot of hits graphically, it still plays a lot like the one on Xbox One and PS4 and PC. It feels that same Doom feel, and even though it doesn't look nearly as good, it's completely portable. I connected my Switch to my cell phone for wireless access, and I played online in the middle of nowhere on one bar of LTE service. It was amazing. It's so cool. So I can overlook a lot of faults if it still feels good and I can take it with me anywhere. Boom. Doom proves that to a T. Great, great port. My number 2 pick is Rocket League. Rocket League doesn't have nearly as many sacrifices as it does compared to Doom. It doesn't have, you know, the sheen that you get from the higher end versions of the game. But largely, it just looks like Rocket League. It plays like Rocket League, you know, silky smooth. 60 frames per second locked on that one because the online mode is able to connect with the other Rocket League systems that it's on. So Xbox One, PS4, PC, all that stuff. You can play against those people. So if you're already a Rocket League veteran, you can just play with all the folks you normally play against. Awesome. If you're not, you can turn that feature off, and then you can just play against the Nintendo folks, and they probably won't be quite as ridiculously skilled, and so maybe you'll stand a little more of a chance. But anyway, Rocket League, you probably know all about it. Crazy jet car soccer. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. Just try it if you haven't before. $20? Easy choice. Number 3 is Skyrim. Another Bethesda title. I love that Bethesda is supporting the Switch when they've never supported a Nintendo system in the past. It's great. Absolutely good news for third-party support coming down in the future. I really hope that they help sway other developers into bringing their games to Switch as well. Skyrim, obviously very old game, right? Came out 2011. 6 years old, right? But it's still a great game. It's still the game that most people go back to the most often. People are still playing Skyrim. Thousands and thousands of hours. One of my buddies, same thing. Thousands of hours. So many mods and things, right? Well, you don't get the mods. But it's still an amazing game even without the mods. It really is. I love particularly the magic in the Elder Scrolls games. And I love going around casting all these various spells and just... most games don't get magic right. You have a little bar and you only replenish points when you like go to a hospital to heal, right? No, this magic is regenerating all the time, and as you get stronger, it takes a lot more effort to actually drain your magic meter. So the more you're using magic, the more it actually lasts longer. And I feel that the Elder Scrolls series just gets magic the most right out of really any game that I can think of at the moment. So I love doing that. Most people, obviously, they like to be the sneaky archer, right? Everybody all the time. Try the magic, I'm telling you. Try and be just a pure magic user, because you can summon these weapons, and then basically that's like using a weapon, but you conjured it through magic. Super cool. The Switch version is a great port. It looks wonderful. You can remap controls. Really an awesome game. If you've never played Skyrim, now is your chance, because you can take it anywhere. Do it. Check it out if you haven't before. Even if you have, maybe you wanted to take it with you anywhere you went. Bada bing, bada boom. There you go. Number 4 is Stardew Valley. Oh man, do I love Stardew Valley. Oh man, do I love Stardew Valley. It's so good. If you've never been a fan of Harvest Moon games, you probably have still heard of Stardew Valley, and maybe you've tried it and you loved it. Me personally, I grew up with Harvest Moon games. Playing it on N64, playing it on PlayStation 1 and 2, playing it on Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, just lots and lots and lots of Harvest Moon. PSP, DS, Wii, GameCube, lots of Harvest Moon games. I love those games. There's something so fun about the simplicity of taking care of your farm and just making friends with the community. And some of the games, when you're making friends with folks, they end up impacting each other's lives. They end up marrying off to other folks inside the town and having children, and a few years go by in the town, and it's like completely different from how you'd started. And it's just a really wonderful, it fills you with warm, positive feelings. It's not a game where you're killing people. There's so many games where you're killing people. Stardew Valley has nothing to do with killing people. It is just a game about relaxation, and honestly, hard work. It's weird, but for some reason, hard work is satisfying. A lot of times in Stardew Valley, from sunup to just before you're about to pass out, I'm active the whole time, just trying to make money. And I don't know, I really enjoy it. I got all sorts of animals, and I got a wife and everything. I don't know. It's one of those games you just have to try it to know whether or not you're going to like it. Number 5 is Axiom Verge. Axiom Verge is basically an 8-bit Metroid game. Straight up. Just a straight up Metroid game, and that's like end of sentence. That's all you need to know. Now, Axiom Verge is really, really cool. The art, the music, everything, all done by one guy. One guy, and done impeccably well. It also is a lot more cinematic than Metroid, so you get more story and more involved, and I just love the dark feel to it, and it's gorgeous. It's a really gorgeous 8-bit game. Oh, it looks so good. I really have to play more of the game, honestly, but so far with the, 5-ish hours I've put in, it's still so amazing, and I got the special deluxe edition with like a soundtrack and everything. It's really cool. If you're a Metroid fan, definitely check out Axiom Verge, one of the few sort of Metroid-style games on the system. My number 6 pick is a love letter to everything Resident Evil. It looks like a PS1 game, it plays like a PS1 game, but it is randomly generated and there's a fun mystery happening. This game is called Vaccine. It's not a very long game, but it's not a very expensive game either. Like I said, it looks like a PS1 game. And the funny thing about that era of PS1, it is the only generation where you can count both the polygons and the pixels at the same time. You know, we thought it looked so good back then. No, it looks so bad. But in a fun, retro way. And this game does everything to a T in that fun, retro way. You know, it's hard to get away from things because the controls aren't wonderful. You know, it's these sort of tank style controls, exactly like Resident Evil was. It is kind of terrifying in some ways. You know, the atmosphere, the feeling of not being able to escape, you know, very well. I love the fact that it is randomly generated. You get this new layout every time. What you're trying to do is race against the clock to get this vaccine for your friend. However, there's also a time loop element. And when you get this vaccine to your friend and you cure them, it's like you start over. And they're sick and you have to get the vaccine again, but the house is different and you have less time. It's like, what's happening? You have to be reading all of these little notes and things left around in the game to get an idea of what happened and what needs to happen. The only way for you to figure it out inside the game is to be reading these notes, to be hearing about the lore, and then you figure out that there's certain tasks you have to do while you're finding this vaccine for your friend in order to break the time loop and actually beat the game. Otherwise, it just keeps getting harder and harder until you lose. So, I thought that was a really fun twist. It seems to me that when you're playing the game, even though it's very difficult, it's like as soon as you get the first round done, you have enough upgrades to your stats that you're probably going to succeed from then on. If you can make it through one round, you'll probably make it through several after that. So stick in there. If it takes you a few tries to get through one round, don't worry. Like I said, once you get to the end of that round for the first time, you'll find yourself with more ammunition and stuff and guns than you ever had, and better stats, so that in the next round you're going to be kicking some butt. So if you love Resident Evil and you love old-fashioned horror games, definitely check out Vaccine. Number 7 is Rayman Legends. You've probably seen this game. It's Ubisoft, it's Rayman, it's a platformer. It's had a bunch of different re-releases for good reason. It has way more content than I thought it did. The layout of the levels is a little bit weird in that there's like these different paintings you jump into for the worlds, but it's also the same thing you use to like check in on settings and swap characters and play mini games and stuff. So it gets a little confusing on wait, what's an actual level versus what's like a mini game. You know what I mean? Like you get a little bit lost in that sense, but once you have that grasp on it, it's so cool. The worlds are so different. There's actually a lot of content from the original Rayman reboot, Rayman Origins. A lot of that stuff. There's like updated versions of those levels in Legends, and of course the music-themed levels, where your actions that you're taking coincide precisely with the music that's happening in the game. Oh man, that is awesome. So really solid platformer. It has such a goofy style of its own. It really stands out from like a 2D Mario game. It's got a lot of personality, and you can't help but be charmed by it. The next game is Resident Evil Revelations Collection. So if Vaccine was a love letter to old-fashioned 32-bit Resident Evil games, this is sort of the most modern rendition of what Resident Evil was prior to Resident Evil 7, where they kind of did another reboot. Resident Evil Revelations came out on 3DS. It was a great game. If you had the little attachment that went on the outside of the 3DS that gave you a second circle pad, that was the best way to play that game. Oh, and a second set of triggers as well. If you played it that way, that game was amazing. They brought that game to consoles as Resident Evil Revelations HD, and then they made a sequel that didn't even come to 3DS. So I didn't even play it. Just sad. Now they're all on a Nintendo system again. So that's great. Really solid gameplay. It really brought back that feeling of horror, that feeling of I'm running out of ammo. You know, I'm not going to be able to live through this segment because I only have 10 shots. And what do you know? You used up 9 of them and you got through it, and then you collected another 10 shots. And, well, technically I'm at 11 shots now, so I'm better off than I was. But, it's the survival, that's done so well of just giving you enough to get through where you're going. And the mystery is a lot of fun to go through. It does, at least the first one feels a lot like a 3DS game because it is so narrow in scope. The rooms you're looking at aren't very big, the levels aren't particularly long, and it's chopped in these really small chunks. But that just makes it really easy to play on the go. So, in the end, it's really not a bad thing. It's really well done horror and really well done survival. And if you've never played Resident Evil Revelations, you definitely got to give this one a chance. Number 9 is Ukulele. Ukulele is basically Banjo-Kazooie. Basically Banjo-Kazooie. There's not much more to say about it in that it's basically Banjo-Kazooie. The presentation of the characters, the funny sound effects they make, the way the levels are designed. It's Banjo-Kazooie, man. Straight up. And the one cool thing that I think it has over Banjo-Kazooie is that after you've completed a level, actually not even after you've completed a level, you collect these certain rare collectibles. And when you have these, you can spend them in one of two ways. You can use them to unlock a new level, or you can use them to expand a level you already have and make it a lot bigger and have a lot more stuff to do in it, which is kind of cool. If you have a favorite world, you had a lot of fun in this particular world, maybe you don't want to move on. Maybe you want to make this one bigger and see what else is in there and spend more time in it. So I thought that was a really cool and unique feature, and I feel as far as Ukulele, as far as Banjo-Kazooie style 3D platforming games goes, this does it perfectly well. So it's really well done, and if you're a Banjo-Kazooie fan, you're a Ukulele fan. Number 10 just barely squeaked in at the end of 2017 there. It's SteamWorld Heist. Now these are the guys that brought you SteamWorld Dig 1 and 2. So they came out with 2 games on Switch this year. Great. SteamWorld Heist is nothing like SteamWorld Dig. It's not an exploration game. It's not a Metroidvania game. It is a strategic game. But it's a strategic projectile ricochet game. Sounds strange, right? You're in a 2D perspective, and these really gorgeous looking and animated sprites are walking around, these steam robots. You have like a pistol. Some of them have a laser sight, so you can see when you're aiming at somebody across the way, you can see how the bullet is going to bounce off the ceiling and bounce off this barrel and then into their head. It's really cool. But then you have other types of weapons that make it more difficult, like you have a shotgun, so it shoots kind of all over the place if you're not going to be close range, or maybe you're throwing a grenade, or maybe you have a machine gun, and so it's not quite as accurate, and it shoots a lot of times, and there's like explosive barrels around, so if you happen to be next to an explosive barrel, you could accidentally ricochet it into the barrel next to you and then give you a lot of damage, right? There's also these supporting items you can attach that boost certain stats or allow you to heal a little bit of health or whatnot. And finding stronger guns is always so cool. Putting on that stronger gun and seeing how it devastates your enemies is just great. But it is really smart, and the enemies you end up facing by the end are pretty tough. So there is a lot of strategy involved in making sure that you survive the level with all of your characters and destroy all of the enemies. So I really love that game. I'm glad they got that on Switch and snuck it in at the end of 2017. And because this is my channel and I can do whatever I want with it, number 11 is Lego City Undercover. Lego City Undercover is a sort of GTA style game. Obviously, it's Lego. It's children friendly. You're not the bad guy. You're a cop, right? Undercover. And it has a lot of movie references and pop culture references that are just funny. Kids, adults, doesn't matter. It's really funny. It is fun to jump around into these various vehicles you unlock and just cause some havoc. You can pretty much blow up, most objects sitting around. You can't really destroy a building, but you can blow up, trees and cars and stuff, and there's really no consequences. and you get things like grappling hooks, and you do like karate, kung fu type stuff when you're fighting your enemies, and your character is fun and snarky, and the humor is good and goofy. It's really well done. And then they added a two-player mode. So if you want to play with your kids, or maybe your wife doesn't play a lot of games, but a Lego game seems like fun for her, like my wife, um, that's a great little addition. So I really liked Lego City Undercover, and I'm glad they brought it to Switch. It loads a little faster. It looks a little better. So those are my top 11 ports for the Nintendo Switch in 2017. What did you think of the list? Were there games that you didn't think deserve to be in there? I'm thinking a lot of people are going to comment about how much they hated the Doom port. It's all opinions, folks. So let me know what you think. Put your comments down below. Let me know what you would put in instead, and I will catch you next time. See ya.